You are not alone. Do not be afraid. Yeah, easy to say, and yet still this time feels very scary. If the fear is left unopposed in your heart, it can grow to feel like sheer terror. Whether you're on the right or on the left, your talking head of choice is offering you no comfort. Whether you're rich or you're poor, you're facing the grim reality that money doesn't taste very good anyway, even if it is salted, and that one ply isn't something you should really turn your nose up at anymore. And the fear isn't exactly that, I just saw a ghost kind of fear. It's more the creaking of a door in a supposedly vacant room kind of fear. It's creepy. You know, you're just left there in silence, waiting for the next creak, so that you can figure out whether to fight or whether to take flight. Now, if you're of a certain mindset, what happens on TV is reality, and therefore you're terrified of contracting a deadly mutant virus that came from a bat, or maybe a snake, or maybe even a US lab experiment gone wrong. Whatever it is, you're caught up in the fear that this bubonic flu or this Spanish plague will decimate half the world over, leaving humanity to struggle for survival as a species. It's the worst of sci-fi, dropping the fi and becoming reality. If you're of another mindset, you read the news with skepticism. You see the numbers, you see the symptoms, and then you look at the reaction, and things just don't add up. Maybe a county-wide scare, perhaps even a state or provincial-wide scare. But you find yourself looking in the mirror and feeling a deep pit in your stomach as you ask your reflection, how can the entire world shut down, with so many high-profile and powerfully greedy forces at play, and them all be willing to roll over and submit to what appears to be nothing but a glorified bout of the common cold? There must be something else going on. What piece of information am I missing? Am I the crazy one for thinking this is not as big a concern as it's being made out to be? Is this finally that government takeover that we've all feared in the back of our minds for the last decade? That great deception that would usher it all in? Either way, you know something is amiss. Either in the viral ecology of the planet or in the hearts of men. Perhaps both. Either way, you're searching for answers and struggling to find them. The wisdom of even our proudest leaders is being frustrated right now. So how on earth could you hope to lead the small company or small family that looks to you in times of trouble and uncertainty? If you lead a family, you lose more and more sleep every night, running through the scenarios in your mind. If this happens, then I'll do that. If that happens, then I'll do this. If you run a business, then you lose sleep wondering if your clients will stop paying and just sit on their cash, or if you've done all you can to help your workers keep safe. But your mind can't plan for every contingency. If you've got the health and infection fear covered, then you have to deal with the fact that your work has ceased. If you've got the money and resources thing covered, then you have to deal with the fact that many others don't, and there may be social unrest if this continues. If you have the safety and shit hit the fan fears covered, then your mind creeps toward the darker, more conspiratorial fears that are floating everywhere. Even if none of that bothers you, then you must contend with the sheer loneliness of asking one of the most social beings on the planet to stay away from one another for an unknowable amount of time because of a rather mysterious and barely tangible enemy. And the worst part of it is, our resources for information are utterly failing us. We have credible sources telling us that millions upon millions will die, likening it to the Spanish flu. And we have other sources telling us that it won't even approach normal flu season numbers. We have reliable sources telling us that there is a cure out there, right now, waiting to be utilized. We have other reliable sources telling us that that is nonsense, and that a cure may be months, if not years away. We have people yelling in one ear that we must simply, unquestioningly, bow down to quote-unquote science. We have in the other ear people yelling reminders that the essence of science is to question, and that so many of the answers provided to the questions do not seem to fit together and are based on anything but science. This is perhaps just the greatest example yet of our crisis of information. But when you have two competing narratives, both with many supposedly prestigious credentials to back them up, claiming that something is, on one hand, the greatest existential threat to mankind we have ever faced, and on the other, claiming it to be a hoax, you have an incredible problem as a society and as an individual when it comes to how to respond to an imminent threat. Couple that with the growing tendency to shout down minority viewpoints in recent years, and you have a recipe for some serious psychological oppression for those of us who are simply trying to figure out how to move forward responsibly. Then on top of that comes the guilt and the sense of foolishness and having not been more prepared. Because no matter who you are and what your skill set and what your storehouses look like, you're not 100% prepared for every potential circumstance. And nobody knows that better than you do. So even when others look to you for guidance, you're haunted by the one chink in your armor of competence that perhaps nobody else even knows about. Facing potentially limitless quarantines, food and supply shortages, and not to mention actually contracting the illness, there are many of us who are congratulating ourselves on our paranoia. All those strange looks from people calling you a weirdo prepper are finally proving to have been worthwhile. Or we are kicking ourselves for our procrastination and lack of foresight, knowing we should have stacked a few rolls of toilet paper for a rainy day, but we had seemingly more important things to do at the time. And now it's too late. And that one can of beans you passed up for a can of beer, or that one jug of water you passed up for a candy bar, it haunts you. One can wait out uncertainty for a time. It seems like one thing to face the challenge of a health condition, and it seems another to face the challenge of losing one's job. It seems doable to overcome a short period of isolation, and one can even perhaps stand against potential tyranny. And sifting through a multitude of false and conflicting narratives has already become a great modern pastime. It's all been done before. But to face them all, at the same time, appears to be too large a mountain to climb. And even if one has faced one or many of these in the past, there was always aid and comfort to be found in others around us. Somebody somewhere was not facing the same thing you were facing, and that either gave you hope, or they may have been able to lend you a real hand. Hurricanes do not happen everywhere all at once. Neither do earthquakes or volcanoes. One place facing economic depression can be balanced by another place that has plenty. Always there is somebody, somewhere, who is safe and comfortable and therefore able to provide some clarity of thought to those who are anxious and suffering. But not today. Everyone on the planet is facing the same thing at the same time, and the temptation to keep one's talents, one's time, and one's treasures to oneself is enormous for everybody. With all this chaos and uncertainty around us, affecting even the smallest of life's decisions right now, is there hope? And if there is, where is that hope? Oh, but there is hope. Ultimately, we have hope in the God that created every human and every virus. We have hope in the God upon whose shoulders every government sits. We have hope in the God without whom not a single king or president or prime minister rises, nor a kingdom, a nation, or an empire falls. We have hope in a God who has complete dominion over the decision to give life and to take it away. We have hope in him because he told us that we can have hope in him. Not just for something beyond this life, but for things like protection, sustenance, and purpose in this life as well. We all know that those things typically do not come in the way that we are expecting them, but they do come. And if we pay close attention to the lives we've lived thus far, we can already see some of those things that we hoped for manifesting themselves over the years and even now. We know that when a son asks for bread, a good father will not give him a stone. Therefore, we know that the good father, when asked, will give much more and much better than even that. That is what our hope is in for our lives and for our families. And because we are given hope, We stand responsible to share that hope with those who do not have hope, that together, the sum of our tiny hopes might light up the darkness. So fear not, for even in this, the cool dark shadow of the valley of death, we need fear no evil. For where many see only entrapment and confinement, we should be seeing great opportunity. When the need is great, all that means is we have the honor of rising up to meet it. First of all, you are not alone. The irony is that until about a couple weeks ago, you were alone. You were too busy checking your Instagram feed to notice your spouse's somber mood. You were too focused on engaging the fascist or opposing socialists to care about engaging the flesh and blood at your own dinner table. As the quarantines linger on, you cannot simply escape to a coffee shop to avoid dealing with the difficult conversations that need to be had in your home. And this is a good thing. Yes, you are cut off from the normal trappings of the rat race, but now you have the time and the clarity to engage the few people that you do have around you in a real way. The needs of the people in your sphere are going to be growing more and more acute, and you have the opportunity to meet them. Right now may be the greatest time in your entire life to stop focusing on the quantity of relationships that you have and to delve deep into the quality of the relationships that you have. Think about it. Who in your life right now do you need to forgive that you have been putting off forgiving? More importantly, who do you need forgiveness from? Now is the time. With death on the lips of the masses, there is no other time than now to release someone from a grudge you've held, or to beg to be released for a wrong you've committed in the past. Who needs your help, whether it's physical or emotional, that you have been ignoring? In this world of equality, and everybody holding their failings and insecurities close to the vest as to hide any hint that they may be vulnerable, weak, or even human, is there someone in your life whose strength you may have been taking for granted for years? Someone whose strength may now be failing them? You have the opportunity to give back to them, to take care of them now. Your wife's father isn't impervious to clouded judgment. Your giving mother isn't immune to struggling against fears of lack. The wife you've always admired because of her calm strength might need to know that she's not letting you or the kids down if she cries. Your bold leader has doubts about their own ability to win the day. You can be a comfort to them. Today you have the opportunity to reach out to someone who you know is alone and remind them that you care, that you pray for them. Growing old is a lonely endeavor as it is. Your loved ones die over time. Your children get busy. The world seeks to put you away as it struggles to find a use for you anymore. Your hands aren't as steady as they used to be, and your mind not as clear. On top of that, this disease seems to be particularly targeting you, making it seem all the more important to stay away from the vital and humanizing touch and sound of another person. Reach out to those who you know are suffering in silent loneliness, who the world claims to be caring for by throwing them away and forgetting about them. Someone in your life has been begging you to lead them, whether it's your wife, your kids, or your company. But for a while now, you have simply refused to lead them. You've been too busy, or you assume they're just as tough as you, and that they've somehow picked up the plan through osmosis. This has left them flailing and insecure, especially in a time like this. Now is your opportunity to lead them, to lend them the hope and strength and vision that you have. Someone in your life needs you to trust them, to show them that you respect them and that you are confident in their decisions. Who should you be following that you have been refusing to follow because you got this? Whose leadership have you been undermining out of pride or a sense of self-importance when all they are doing is trying to help you and fill the shoes they've been given to fill? Show them that you are ready to trust them, ready to follow them. Best of all, right now, you have the opportunity to gaze deeply in the mirror and contemplate that behavior that you know is wrong. You hate that you do it, but try as you might, you do it still. It hurts those that you love, even if they can't see where the pain is coming from. It hurts you, though you deny where the pain is coming from, and yet you still do it. Sometimes the shame helps you stop for a time being, but then the sweet covering of secrecy makes the temptation too much to bear, and you do it again. Today, for tomorrow is not promised, you have the opportunity to turn away from that which severs the bonds between you and your friends and toxifies the relationships in your family. You can stop running when nobody chases you, and you can be bold as a lion. All because you have turned away from the wicked thoughts and deeds that cause you to miss the mark that you know is set out before you. Now is the time to start living consistently with what you believe, and be proud of every thought, every deed, done in secret or in daylight. The opportunity is now to take care of those around you as if you were taking care of yourself, whether that means ceasing to spread lies knowingly or dipping into things that aren't yours. You can stop abusing your power. You can stop conspiring to steal the power of others. The envy, the lust, the trickery, the arrogance, the unwillingness to help, the virtue signaling when you really don't care, it can all stop, and you can reconcile with those who you've hurt through putting your in-the-moment desires or fears, frustrations, or angles above their long-term well-being and trust in you. The sooner you turn away from that, the sooner you will be able to boldly face any challenge that lay before you, and the better equipped you will be to help those around you who will, no doubt, desperately need it.